Melbourne Park, January 2026. The Australian Open is in full swing. Security officers are scrambling. Queues are snaking through the grounds, stretching hundreds of yards past Rod Laver Arena. Thousands of fans have descended, creating a logjam outside Court 6. But the clamor isn't for Carlos Alcaraz. It isn't for Novak Djokovic. It isn't even for a Grand Slam final. It's for Alexandra Eala, the world number 49, a player who was scheduled to play on Court 6, a venue that holds about 1,500 people. I couldn't believe the queues. Who's on the scheduling team? Britain's BJK Cup captain Anne Keathavong said on BBC Radio 5 Alive. The tennis world was stunned. The ATP was stunned. Tournament organizers were scrambling. How could a 20-year-old from the Philippines, ranked outside the top 50, be outselling the biggest names in the sport? How could her match tickets be selling faster than Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic ever did in their prime? Ben Rothenberg, editor of the tennis magazine Bounces, had an answer. He called Alex Eala the most popular player in tennis right now. Not the most promising, not the most exciting, the most popular. The numbers were staggering. Her pre-tournament news conference was watched online by 171,000 people, dwarfing those of superstars Alcaraz, Coco Gauff, both 29,000, and Aryna Sabalenka, 9,000. In Dubai, the Women's Week of the Duty-Free Tennis Championships saw a 48% year-on-year jump in ticket sales. Everywhere she went, stands filled first for her matches. Noise levels spiked. Camera lenses swung her way. Tournament schedules quietly adjusted. A 20-year-old from Quezon City was rewriting the business of tennis. This is the story of how a young Filipina became the hottest ticket in the sport. Let's begin. The Australian Open organizers had planned for many things. They had planned for Alcaraz. They had planned for Djokovic. They had planned for Gauff and Sabalenka. They had not planned for Alexandra Eala. When the draw was announced and Eala was scheduled to play her first-round match on Court 6, no one expected what happened next. Thousands of Filipinos descended on Melbourne Park. The queue stretched for hundreds of yards through the grounds. Fans were packed on the sidelines, and the queues to get onto the court extended throughout much of the venue. Security officers were dispatched to manage the crowd. The scene outside Court 6 on Monday afternoon was astonishing. Hundreds of fans lined up with patience and excitement, many simply hoping to witness the 20-year-old's Australian Open main draw debut in person. Tennis legend Martina Navratilova was among those who criticized the decision to put Eala on such a small court. The organizers need to keep more in mind where the players are from and what the actual fan base is here. Inside the court, stands were filled with fans bearing Philippines flags, raucously cheering their 20-year-old hero. The atmosphere was electric. It felt less like a tennis match and more like a Davis Cup tie. The Australian Open, in response to a fan complaint on social media, said it would take it as a learning for next year. A week earlier, Eala's pre-tournament news conference had been watched online by 171,000 people. That number dwarfed the press conferences of tennis superstars Carlos Alcaraz and Coco Gauff, who each drew 29,000 viewers, and Aryna Sabalenka, who drew just 9,000. A 20-year-old ranked 49th in the world had generated more media interest than the world number 1. Novak Djokovic took notice. "I saw the other day that Alex Eala has been the talk, which is understandable," the Serbian legend said during his post-match press conference. Some players coming from their respective countries, and she comes from the Philippines, which is now a very big deal. He called the attention she draws a good problem that reflects tennis's expanding worldwide appeal. "Having too much crowd on this or any other tennis tournament is a very good problem to have," Djokovic remarked. "I think there are much worse problems to have." The Australian Open opener set a new record with 101,696 spectators, surpassing the previous record of 95,290 fans. Part of that was Eala's match, as she rocked Melbourne with a huge following everywhere she went. A 20-year-old wildcard had helped break an attendance record at one of the sport's biggest events. The tennis world was stunned. The ATP was paying attention. What we have witnessed on Eala's Australian Open main draw debut should not have come as a total surprise, BBC Sport noted. While some fans traveled from Sydney specifically to watch Eala, the bulk came from Melbourne's 60,000-strong Filipino population. On Monday, it felt like they had all turned up to watch Eala's first-round singles match. "I didn't expect that many people to be there," Eala said. "It's a learning process. I'm just trying to take it in." The tennis establishment had been given a wake-up call, and it was only the beginning. If the Australian Open was a warning shot, Dubai was a full-blown explosion. When Alexandra Eala made her debut at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships in February 2026, she was ranked 47th in the world. She was not a top seed. She was not a defending champion. She was just a rising star from a country that had never produced a tennis player of her caliber. But the Filipino community in Dubai had other ideas. They were there in huge numbers, transforming the usually sedate atmosphere into something bordering on a football match, a report noted. Flag-waving Filipino fans turned the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Stadium into a cauldron. The Dubai-based tennis referee, Hani El Kafif, who had officiated at the tournament for more than 30 decades, had witnessed packed houses for Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Agassi, and the Williams sisters. He had seen it all, but he had never seen anything like this. "This was a different experience," Hani El Kafif told Khaleej Times. "I have seen big matches. I've seen Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, and Agassi. Obviously, those matches had full houses, but this was a very different atmosphere." He insisted that only Sania Mirza, the trailblazer of Indian women's tennis, had a comparable effect in Dubai when she made her tournament debut in 2005. "Eala's matches reminded me of Sania's matches when she played here for the first time. The atmosphere was incredible. Back then, the venue was overcrowded with Indians. Now, it was the same with Eala."
The numbers backed up his words. The Women's Week of the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships saw a 48% year-on-year jump in ticket sales. All her matches had packed stands, El Kafif said. Even the two semifinals didn't have that kind of crowd. The final had a full house, of course, but Eala's matches were massive. That's the ticket everyone wanted. "Normally, I get messages on my phone from people wanting tickets," he added. "But this time, for Eala's matches, the demand was crazy. I was scared to look at my WhatsApp messages. The phone was running out of batteries." A 48% jump in a tournament that had hosted the biggest names in tennis history. The ATP, the WTA, and the entire tennis establishment were left scrambling to understand what was happening. Due to overflowing Filipino crowds, Eala's matches were now being moved to center court so as to accommodate spectators and allow for better, noisier television. The tournament had no choice. The demand was simply too great. Even Jessica Pegula, with the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships trophy by her side after she won the final against Aryna Sabalenka, showered praise on Eala for winning the hearts of the fans. "When players come from countries like India and the Philippines, the stadium feels like a Davis Cup venue," El Kafif said. "People are cheering for their country, not just for one player." The Eala effect had arrived in the Middle East, and it was rewriting the economics of the sport. The phenomenon had a name: the Eala effect. In women's tennis, stardom has traditionally followed trophies, rankings, and Grand Slam tallies. Alexandra Eala is breaking that order. Ranked world number 31, the 20-year-old Filipina is not yet a slam champion, not yet a top 10 fixture, and not yet the most decorated player on tour. Yet wherever she plays, the stands fill first for her matches. Noise levels spike, camera lenses swing her way. Tournament schedules quietly adjust. Across the early months of 2026, Eala's presence reshaped atmospheres from Melbourne to Abu Dhabi, and most recently in Dubai, where crowds followed her run against Hailey Baptiste, Jasmine Paolini, and Sorana Cristea as if it were a title march. The message from fans was consistent: if Alex Eala is on court, that's where they want to be. Former pros took notice. On the Nothing Major podcast, Sam Querrey posed what would have sounded unthinkable a year ago. Is Eala the biggest draw in women's tennis right now? Steve Johnson's answer was blunt. Yes. Dude, it's crazy, Johnson said. Bigger, he said, than Coco Gauff, bigger than Aryna Sabalenka. She's having the same effect that Fonseca was having on the men's side last year in Miami, Australia. The court was standing room only. Then Dubai had standing room only. It's insane. Like it's massive the crowd she's getting. Like all over the world are insane. The comparison wasn't about results, it was about pull. Tournament insiders described a familiar pattern. Eala was assigned an outside court early in the week, ticket demand surged, and by match day, the venue was standing room only. By the next round, she was moved to one of the show courts. The same thing had happened on the men's side with João Fonseca last season, but observers argued Eala's impact was broader, more international, and more sustained. Much of it traced back to a long, underestimated market. The Philippines had never had a women's tennis star operating at this level, and the response had been seismic. Filipino communities abroad turned Eala's matches into cultural gatherings, while fans back home
drove massive digital engagement across platforms. Clips of her matches routinely outperformed those of higher-ranked players, creating a feedback loop of visibility that the sport rarely sees. Eala no longer needed a title to command attention. She had changed the economics of attention itself. In a sport searching for its next global superstar, the Eala effect was proving that popularity could be built on something other than trophies. I am nowhere near the leagues of the greats, Djokovic, Sabalenka, Alcaraz. But the scenes unfolding around her suggested otherwise. Alex Eala may have refused to embrace stardom, but stardom had embraced her. The Eala effect wasn't confined to international tournaments. When the inaugural Philippine Women's Open was announced, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Even before Eala's participation was fully confirmed, organizers announced that standard and premium tickets for the semifinals and finals were already sold out. Thousands more fans were expected to gather outside the venue, hoping to secure last-minute access or simply watch her play on large screens set up around the complex. The tennis center at Rizal Memorial was equipped with an additional 2,000 seats, with another 600 ready to be deployed in case the demand for tickets increased further. If I show you the request for tickets, it's like I can't breathe anymore, an organizer said. Tennis legend Martina Navratilova took notice. She openly urged tournament organizers to assign Eala to larger courts whenever possible. According to Navratilova, the crowds Eala attracts consistently outgrow the venues scheduled for her matches, creating logistical challenges and missed opportunities for fans. The Philippine sports establishment was scrambling to contain a phenomenon it had never seen before. A country where basketball traditionally rules the roost had found a new hero. A hero who in the span of a single year had climbed from outside the top 700 to the brink of the elite. A hero who had become the highest-ranked tennis player in the history of the Philippines. A hero who was selling out arenas before she had even won a tour-level title. By filling seats and selling out arenas across 6 tournaments this year, Eala put on full display, time and time again, that she was him. She was introducing the sport to her kababayans, while also introducing Filipinos to the world. I've only dreamed of making tennis grow in the Philippines, and now I'm bringing a whole new audience to tennis around the world, Eala told Indian Wells in a recent soundbite. The Filipinos, we have such a strong sense of community, and I feel like when one of us does well or succeeds, we all have that shared sense of pride. Eala remained grounded. I am nowhere near the leagues of the greats, Djokovic, Sabalenka, Alcaraz. Manny Pacquiao is different, Eala said in Filipino. He is on another level. I remember when Manny had a fight, it felt like a vacation for people. The whole family would be together at home. There's lechon and popcorn. She added, almost apologetically, I think I'm still a bit far behind. But for a player who insists she is still far from the sport's elite, the scenes unfolding around her suggested otherwise. Alex Eala may refuse to embrace stardom, but stardom had embraced her. The numbers told a story that the tennis establishment could not ignore. In just 2 months since the 2026 WTA tournament calendar kicked off, Eala had already collected notable achievements. She had climbed to a career high of 28 following her run to the quarterfinals in Dubai. She had become the first Filipino to break into the WTA top 30, have multiple wins over top 10 players and major champions, and reach a tour-level final in the Open era.
But it was the off-court numbers that were truly staggering. Her pre-tournament press conference at the Australian Open had been watched by 171,000 people. That was nearly 6 times more than Coco Gauff and Alcaraz combined, and nearly 19 times more than Sabalenka. She had sold out arenas across 6 tournaments. She had helped set a new Australian Open attendance record. Tournament directors were desperate to have her. When players come from countries like India and the Philippines, the stadium feels like a Davis Cup venue, Elkafiev said. People are cheering for their country, not just for one player. Even world number 4 Coco Gauff acknowledged Eala's massive fan base, saying she has a huge fan base. She actually would be number 1 probably. The Eala effect was no longer a novelty, it was a movement. In 5 years, Eala had climbed from outside the top 700 to the brink of the elite. She was no longer just a promising prospect, she was rewriting the business of tennis itself. Eala herself understood the significance of what was happening. "It's more of pride than pressure. It's a blessing to have this support behind me," she said. "I've only dreamed of making tennis grow in the Philippines, and now I'm bringing a whole new audience to tennis around the world." "Everything after Miami was a new experience," Eala said. "My eyes are wide open now, just eager to compete at this level." The tennis world had witnessed the emergence of a phenomenon, a player who didn't just win matches, a player who filled stadiums, a player who broke records without even holding a trophy, a player who had changed the economics of attention itself. And she was just getting started. And that, my friends, is how a 21-year-old from Quezon City became the hottest ticket in tennis. A 48% jump in ticket sales, a record-breaking Australian Open crowd, 171,000 people watching her press conference. Former pros calling her the biggest draw in women's tennis, bigger than Sabalenka, bigger than Gauff. The ATP is stunned, the WTA is scrabbling, and Alexandra Eala is just getting started. This is the rise of a phenomenon. This is the rewriting of the business of tennis. And trust me, this is only the beginning.